Hey everybody, Elaine and Jaylynn.
Welcome back.
We've been discussing training, CK, our staff, our families. We've had some really good conversations in the last couple of episodes. So we wanted to come to you today and give you some more information about our training classes.
And kind of a continuation from the last one the last one you've probably watched if you're watching these in order, kind of carry on from that. I know that one we got a little kind of deep in discussion,
yes,
which is good, talking about our core training. So we want to continue on to that one. We'll try to keep this one a little shorter, circling back and covering over the trainings that we do have left that you guys need to attend or that our families attend, and kind of walk through those and what's expected of those. And we'll try to keep this one shorter, I think. We'll get to the nuts and bolts of it.
I'll try.
We like our rabbit holes, but we'll try to stay on this one. So we'll try to appreciate your time as much as we possibly can today.
That's right.
Right?
Well, we talked about orientation and therapeutic parenting.
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. And our training is about 2.5 weeks, usually depending on the location of the class and the structure. But we still need cultural competency.
Yep, which is a pretty vital class.
Adoption. CPR and first aid.
Yes.
And normalcy.
Normalcy's new.
Yeah.
Cool class, but very new to us. And Texas is kind of need to have it. So.
And we've gotten some pretty good feedback from the families on normalcy.
Yeah, our normalcy class is very interactive.
What does that mean, Elaine, though, really? Normalcy.
Me?
Yeah. It means you get Elaine for 3.5 hours of class.
Yeah. 3, actually.
3 hours of class.
Oh man, normalcy. I know. I get it all the time. People are like, "You of all people are teaching normalcy." So I am. And I've started off my child welfare foster care journey by always saying, like, there's such a stigma toward the word normal because it takes me to a place of where we're trying to recruit these treatment foster families, which is a whole nother podcast, I'm sure. But when I'm talking to our families, and they're like, "What's the difference between a treatment foster care family and a foster home?" And I'm like, well, normal foster care. And I'm like, I hate saying that because foster care is not normal by any means.
Yeah.
And really nothing is normal. But by, standard and everything else, this is called normalcy. And I'm pretty passionate about it. It's a really cool movement and need that we have is for this normalcy movement. So we'll kind of start talking about that, I guess, and then kind of go into the rest of the trainings that we have.
Yeah.
Okay. Normalcy is our newest training. It talks about kind of what we contradict our families, what they're doing, as far as we expect them to do all of these things but keep these kids in a bubble. So the families start off in foster care too worried about doing something wrong or that the state doesn't allow, or getting approval for everything, that they just don't do anything for it. Like, they're so worried about getting, like, either getting the child hurt or, by playing some sport activity or having the appropriate supervision for the child, that there's so much, they feel so restricted.
So you mean like birthday parties?
Yep.
Sleepovers, senior lock-ins, that kind of thing that we take for granted as normal.
Yeah, so
our kids aren't able to do.
Your biological children, you don't even think twice. You're like, is it safe? This is what's happening. This is what the expectations are. Here's the agenda. Gone.
Right.
Done. My kid goes, and you can approve that. But as a foster family, we raise them up and teach them this way of CPS is always the one that makes the decisions, and we have to get approval for everything, which is totally true. Totally true. But we are teaching them within good reason. They can have the ability and empowered to make those decisions for the children. There's just certain things they need to consider and ask themselves before they approve an activity for a child.
I see.
So I always say, like, don't think that it's an approval. We are empowering you. We are an agency, and the state of Texas is licensing you to be a foster family. So right there, we know that you are in sound judgment and mind, and you're a prudent parent, that you can make decisions on the best, behalf of this child. Yeah. So if your son goes and plays basketball, and you have a foster child placed with you, you can, if that child wants to play basketball, you can have that. It's within good reason. It has, it's a regular scheduled event. He'll be supervised by his coach. So there's different factors to consider. And it's trying to normalize the lives of these foster children and not be so identified as a foster child. Well, you can't go to the bounce house this weekend for your friend's birthday party because you're in foster care, you can't go. Or you can go to the trampoline park this weekend for the birthday party. You can go eat cake and ice cream, but you can't go on the trampoline.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't think I really thought about it that way. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
So the foster parents were taking precautionary measures, but sometimes it went way to the left or way to the right, and
because they're protecting the child and themselves because they feel that they're restricted.
Okay.
A big thing that comes down to it is, for example, background checks. I mean, we tell them anyone who's around the child has to be background checked. Background check. We are so overprotective for good reason. This allows them to be like, okay, you want to go stay the night at your friend's house, talk to me through this, maybe meet the other family, but don't ask them for a background check, but you know that they're in good hands, or you've already had that child come stay the night at your house. Normal childhood activities. And in that training or development of skill set, we go over that as far as we ask families, because what I considered normal growing up in my home was probably not what other people say is normal. So we kind of talk about that. We dialogue about how were you raised, what did you think was normal in your home life, and what would that look like for a foster child coming in. Not only are we trying to make sure that the foster child you take placement of is a good match for your family, whether you're outdoorsy or what you like to do that child has interest in, but also making sure that you understand that that child can have friends at school. Or something neat we did back home in my previous employment is that we were able to take children back to if they had been removed from their community and we couldn't find a foster home to care for them in their community, we were able to let them go back and stay a night or a weekend with someone they were close to in school, an old coach or something, just to kind of keep that connection to their community.
Sense, because we've had some families that have called us recently where the husband's a coach of a Pee-wee league or whatever, and they want all the children to be involved, but there's been some hesitation because of background checks. And it's like, what do you mean the background checks? But now I see, because the CK has to determine who has those background checks, but normal things would be he's already on the team, he's interacting with these same folks every day. So okay, all right. So now if you're a coach, you don't have to hesitate anymore. Great.
And having that, and if you're a coach or doing something else like that involved in the school, you have to think big picture, that the likelihood, that they've already been background checked, and if the school trusts them to be a coach within the school, we should trust them to be a foster parent. And I'll never forget when we were doing direct care for some kiddos there. They start to understand what the restrictions are, and they're old enough to be like, what, do they not have a background check so I can't go see him? And it's like, oh my gosh. And I remember transporting that little guy, and he was in the back seat and looked at him in the rearview mirror, and I was like, I'm not going to say his name obviously, but I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, how do you know, where did that come from? He's like, Elaine, I hear you talking. He's like, I know. He's like, I can't do it because there's no background check. Why don't you just take me home? And it's just and they already have that name on their back and stuff. So I think it's really exciting, and it's really, really cool for our families to have that ability and that empowerment to get these children involved and not be so identified as a foster child.
That's great, because I've known some children in the past that have not shared with their friends or anybody. The people at the school knew that they were in foster care, but their immediate friends did not. And so this will help that.
Yeah.
So,
so when they get an invite from a schoolmate that says, hey, I'm having a birthday party at my house this weekend, blah, 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 they're excited about it, and they come home and they have the ability to ask to go instead of giving that invite back and say, don't waste your time, I'm a foster kid and can't go.
Care. Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Whew, okay, Texas, we're finally...
We're a little delayed, but we got there.
That's okay. We're there now. Okay, so normalcy, cultural competency.
That's an important one. Yep, that is, where we're at. We are in a very urban setting, some rural settings, depending on the area of the region that we're at. But we have, we expect and we praise and hope our families are open to any race, any background, any diversity. And we cover, not only races, but we cover different religions and different ways of upbringing as far as different children, how they've been raised, coming into your home and what that looks like, and understanding how important culture is. A good example we talk to families a lot about is that we had this foster mom who had a child come into her home of a different race, and where they lived was a primarily dominant, background or race, and so she took the time each week, and it was every other week, was a Girl Scout meeting that she had been involved in, so that borderlines with that normalcy expectation,
right.
but also floods into cultural expectations because the Girl Scout troop in her area was predominantly a different race, so she was able to take her back to her old so she could have that connection with her race.
Yeah.
So we talked through that. I mean, that's obviously over and above, which was, we praised that foster mom for that. But we go over like different races, cultures, how to handle different things, working through that, and try to, because some families do come in and they're not sure about taking a child of a different background or diversity, and we try to walk through what that looks like.
That's good.
And something really cool that's part of it, in the previous segment we talked about how fresh and new and different things we try to adapt our training to do to meet the needs and keep our families engaged. But we've had some foster families come through and they've been interviewed as far as how they felt foster parenting, not only being a foster parent, but foster parenting a child from a different race. Like we had an African-American foster mom adopt a Caucasian boy, and she's talking through that and her experience. Going out into the community and what the community looks like, so doing all of that stuff, we've really tried to make sure that our training speaks to our families and understanding just how vital and important cultural competency and diversity is, and understanding children's backgrounds and being mindful of that, like what's important to them and how they were raised. Religion is a big one, like if they had a different religious expectation, and answering a lot of questions about that. It generates a lot of conversation.
Yes, which is good.
It is. It really is.
But the other thing is too, just because of the way the process works when children are placed, we get that call from CPS or OCOK, and they may not know the race of the child, and so it helps when you have families who are more open.
Doesn't matter what it is.
But if you are open, we're going to equip you and help you get some information regarding that. But sometimes I know Bill used to tell the story about a foster family expecting African-American children, and it was some Asian children, but the family was still open, so that was fine, because there's a lot happening in the removal process.
Get excited
so we
about
don't,
that.
Well,
and then sometimes, we dial it down in that class to something even as specific, or some people say as simple as it is, like being able to do an African-American child's hair. That's
or even vice versa, because I know we've had a foster mom that had an Anglo child in her home. She put the oils in the I think it was a little boy in his hair, but it's vice versa. It's whatever it is, so we can make sure that child doesn't feel uncomfortable or definitely different when they go.
So we try to encompass everything,
alfalfa
both big,
hair.
small, Yes, we try to cover it all in that class.
No, that's good.
But I enjoyed that class. We do a lot of activities, and it really gives a real perspective of the children that are coming out, and trying to open up our families' eyes to be not only accepting of other races, but also understand that they can parent them, and we'll walk them through that with support. So we have lots of resources for that. It's not as scary as it sounds. All
right, and then adoption.
Adoption is... it's a great class. We don't, the adoption department puts that on, and so they are the adoption experts. They come with statistics. They come with all of the knowledge that it needs as far as walking families through. Not only they kind of touch on foster to adopt, obviously, as far as that finalization piece, and then what it looks like to do matched adoption, and then on the other spectrum of it, like after the adoption is finalized, all those resources that we have available for our families. And they go into the financial pieces and different things like that, but they have a pretty, it's a 3-hour class too, that they go through the nuts and bolts of adoption and what it looks like to be an adoptive parent. So it's a pretty rewarding class as well.
You said for either foster to adopt, because when foster parents adopt a child in their home, or our mass adoption families, everybody goes through that class.
Absolutely, absolutely. If our families are motivated to adopt in any way, they're required to take adoption. If there is a family that comes through as foster only, they don't necessarily have to take adoption on the front end, but we find that our foster families who are just, I'm here to foster, they have that child in their home, they may have cared for it for a while, and then, the courts decide that the child is not going to be able to be reintegrated or returned home. They'll come through and say, hey, I need to be amended to be able to get adoption. And so that's always a good piece for families to remember, just because you decide or you feel what's best for your family is foster on the front end, but then transition to adoption or matched adoption, whatever that needs to look like. There's ways to do that. But
it also gives you some information if you are a fostering only family what adoptive families go through and what our
Correct.
children see as well
Yep.
during that process. So it's an informative class either way.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they go through like processes and they dial it down to, I mean, not that it's an expectation or a high need for our families, but like the financial piece and all of that, like what that looks like, and negotiating subsidy, and because that's a factor, and it's
Right.
you know, it affects, and then you know, when you adopt, like what that insurance piece looks like and everything else.
Yes, yes. All right, so we've
They're working hard
talked
outside.
about orientation, TPP 1, 2, and 3,
Uh-huh.
cultural competency, adoption, normalcy,
Yep.
CPR and first aid.
Yep.
All right, so that's our 2.5 weeks of training, depending on where we are. So you want to take some questions? We've had some folks
Well, do
email.
you feel? I mean, we do have online trainings that are required.
Yes, forgot about that.
those are pretty
Psychotropic
important.
medication and medical consenter training.
Reboarding abuse and neglect.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
Trauma-informed
Yes.
care. So there are some online trainings, but those are all pretty important and really, I mean, and when you hear online training, that are, you know, 'cause some people are just like, oh, what am I going to learn in an online training? But I mean, it's a DFPS CPS training that's pretty prominent and important, so it means a great deal.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All right. Well, do we need to take some? Are we ready for some questions?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Yes,
Was
we
that
can
just
take some
Mike?
questions. So,
No, some
yeah,
other
for those
guy.
of you who aren't aware where we're set up in our building here, we are kind of in a waiting area for our boardroom area. So occasionally we get some folks walking by and that sort of thing. But don't let that distract you. We
No.
need families.
No.
And they're doing yard work outside. We got to keep up with maintenance. If you hear
Yeah.
a weed blower, they're doing that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a blower up here on the porch in just a second, so we make it really loud. Then we're going to start screaming.
So call in. You can call at any time.
Yes.
All right, so we've got 3 questions today. Thomas from Mansfield asks, do we have to take the classes in any certain order?
That is a great question. No, sir, you do not have to take your classes in order, although that is our preference. We are very flexible because I talk to families, our recruiter Kevin talks to families throughout the week and on the weekends. It can be after a class just started, and we don't want you to miss out on an opportunity to attend training.
Absolutely.
So the only thing that we ask is that you register for training so we can get you set up, but you can take those classes out of order. We've even, we usually send out calendars, our pre-service calendars, a month or 2 in advance. So sometimes families will attend 2 or 3 classes at this Dallas location, and then they'll finish up their classes at the Keller location. We have training at our offices as well as off-site. A lot of churches and community centers have opened themselves up for us. Thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely, we couldn't do this without them.
Yes, yes. And so as long as the calendars are out there, you are more than welcome to attend. So absolutely, Thomas. Thanks for the question.
Yes, and something that we try to train at least twice a month in different locations.
Yes.
But we typically only return to a location maybe annually, depending on how the training goes and the space that they can provide us. So if we're training in Keller right now, we probably won't go back to that same church till next year. So we try to offer a lot of diverse locations for all of our families. We always try to train on one side of the region at each pre-service, like
Yep.
during the month. So we try to make sure we're adaptable and all over the place. So
Because we service 19 counties, serve 19 counties, and that is a lot in the area. So we move around for training because some of our families are actually driving almost 2 hours
Yeah.
one way for
But
training.
I tell them it's good to drive far because after you leave training, you have that car ride to process what you've learned and
Yes,
talk about it. So
true.
the drive can be very useful to some of our families because then it generates questions and then they can circle back and be like, it's just a great conversation piece when you drive home. So I always recommend that they do that if they have the time and opportunity to do so. So it turns out to
Absolutely.
be great conversation. So
Good.
the word is flexible, Tom.
Flexible.
Tom, it's flexible. We try to be as flexible as possible. We work alongside you, not behind you, and not in front of you. So,
Okay, so the second question, I think you guys may have kind of answered this already, but I'll go ahead and read it anyways, and if you feel like you've answered it, we'll just skip it. But the second one comes from Emily in Rockwall, and she wants to know, where is training held?
well, unfortunately, we just finished up in Rockwall. So we go everywhere.
We go everywhere, but training is, so 19 counties, we serve 19 counties. and we just move around. We finished our 2018 calendar a few weeks ago, so some families or some churches might be getting emails and letters from us saying, yay, we're ready to come back. But we move around because our families geographically are so spread out. We are almost at Oklahoma on one end and in
a great place up there. I
Waco
enjoy
another
that.
end. So our region is pretty big. So we move around, but we usually send out about a month or two worth of trainings. As Elaine said, we try to have 2 a month. Sometimes we have 3.
We snuck that one in there, didn't
Depends
we?
on what's happening. But we'll let you know where we are, and you are more than welcome to attend any training at any location as long as it's CK training. You have to complete all CK training.
And it's free.
Yes.
So, and something new that we're trying to do is not only are we having our full rounds of pre-service training with all the training we've talked about in these last couple podcasts, but we're trying to do maybe places we haven't taught at and we're not sure where the following is, meeting the need and going out and doing an intro, a meet and greet orientation just on an evening to get to know that location as well.
Exactly.
So lots of opportunities for sure.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, so the final question that we've got for today is from Renee in Bridgeport.
Renee, that's a good name too. I like Renee.
Wise County.
Yeah. So Renee wants to know, does my husband have to attend class also?
I'll let you take that one. That's a good one. You have to handle that on the front end.
Yes, everybody in the household, the parents need to attend training. So that means the 40 hours or so training that you receive, you can attend that together or separately, again, because we're very flexible when it comes to training. But before it's all said and done, everybody has to attend the training. And 13-year-olds have to have FBI fingerprints. So the whole household is involved. And then if you have babysitters or nannies or friends, depending on what their role will be in the training, they also need to attend some of the training. So,
and that just goes to show that we want everyone involved. This is a family effort and needs to be something that the family does together. So it definitely includes, that's why we do it. It's just because not only is it, mandatory, but we want the family to be involved.
So the answer is yes, with all the extra.
Yeah. Together or apart. So that's good questions, though. Lots of good questions.
Lots of good questions.
I'm
and
trying
if
to
y'all
beat the
have
blower.
any additional questions, please send everything to ckfamilyservices.org. Elaine and I will answer those questions on future podcasts, or these podcasts or vlogs or our little episodes, family development episodes.
Yep. And if you have any recommendation or need, or you feel that it would be nice for us to come visit your area, just give us a shout and give us some opportunity or whatever you need to do. We'd be more than happy to come out and visit with any families that you feel would be great foster parents, because we'll do whatever we can.
All right. It looks like we're playing Beat the Clock. So thanks for joining us today.
We're beating the blower.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you.